Today I'd like to talk to you about the liberal arts and sciences. There's a lot of confusion out there about what the liberal arts and sciences are. Many people mistakenly think that the liberal arts are somehow opposed to STEM fields, so that the humanities, social sciences, and the fine arts are liberal arts, but the physical sciences are not. In addition, a lot of people think that in this technologically advanced age in which we live, you can't get a job with a liberal arts degree. Welcome to my Fin faculty preview. I'm Professor Erich Freiberger, Doctor of Philosophy at Jacksonville University. In what follows, I propose that both of these ideas about the liberal arts and sciences are based on a complete misunderstanding of what they really are, and that both notions completely misunderstand the ethical purpose that they're designed to serve. So let's talk briefly about their original meaning. First of all, we shouldn't speak only of the liberal arts as if they were separable from the sciences, but we should always speak of both of them together. In their original formation, in the philosophies of the ancient Greek philosophers Plato and Aristotle, the two are understood as having a single aim that is central to developing a unified understanding of the world and our place within it. The traditional understanding of the liberal arts and sciences, which derives from their work, consists of 7 disciplines. Those are grammar, logic, rhetoric, which in the Middle Ages became known as the trivium, or the 3 ways, and then geometry, arithmetic, music, and astronomy. These last 4 disciplines became known as the quadrivium, or the 4 ways. The first of these, the trivium, are disciplines of the word. The latter 4, the quadrivium, are disciplines based on number. You'll note that both groups consist of things that seem to blur the distinction between our contemporary understanding of what the arts and sciences are. This is important because for the ancient Greek philosophers, all of these, with the possible exception of rhetoric, would have been regarded as much as sciences as arts. In ancient Greek, the word for art, or techne, which is the root of our word for technology, might also have been used interchangeably with the word for science, or episteme, if that art could give a full account of how it functioned. To give an example, music was regarded as much as a science as an art because it dealt not just with the production of sound, but it also had to do with what the ancients regarded as the unchanging laws of harmony and proportion that govern the natural world, which meant that it could then be classed among the sciences. Thus, from the perspective of these ancient philosophers, something like Mendeleev's periodic table would have been regarded as a kind of music because it exhibits sequences of harmonious relations in nature. Without going into further detail, the point is that all 7 of these disciplines, whether understood as arts or sciences, converge in a single focus, which is to understand the way things truly are. And a well-rounded education appropriate for free people in a free society was understood to consist in a curriculum that studied them all. The traditional sequence of education in the liberal arts and sciences was to first study the disciplines of the word, grammar, logic, and rhetoric, before proceeding to the disciplines of number, geometry, arithmetic, music, and astronomy. But in this curricular sequence, the point was not, as we might think today, that number and measurement were somehow more rigorous than logic and grammar, but rather something entirely different, almost exactly the opposite. In the ancient view, the idea was that the numerical disciplines which yield the highest precision about the visible world should be studied to prepare us to make good choices in the domain of practical decision-making. On this view, which is spelled out in Plato's Republic, ethics, which is about the idea of what is right and wrong, attends to the order of language, which goes beyond number and can only be accessed in an act of pure thinking, which has no correlate in the visible world. Thus, by studying the highest things in the visible world, the disciplines of number, the precision practiced there is designed to prepare us for the even greater rigor required if we are to grasp the best thing to do in a particular situation. This kind of judgment is an act of pure thought, which has no visible measure and is rarely etched in stone. Accordingly, the point of studying the liberal arts and sciences is to prepare us to operate in the domain of action and equip us to figure out the right thing to do by providing us with the most relevant preparatory training. What this means is that the real purpose of studying the arts and sciences is ethical. Its true purpose is to sustain and support the inquiry into the best ways of acting and living. Another way to say this is that the liberal arts and sciences point to a search for ultimate ends that we should pursue because the kind of inquiry they involve is what sets the standard for what we should do with the many goods that our freedom and economic prosperity provide. The study of the liberal arts and sciences points to the idea of how we can make the best use of our freedom. In Aristotle's Politics, he proposes that the liberal arts and sciences are an appropriate course of study for free people in a free society because they bring together the set of disciplines that best enable us to preserve our freedom. They're what permit us to distinguish and grasp the highest standard of value. As such, when the great European universities were founded in the Middle Ages, the study of the arts and sciences constituted the core of what was taught because they aim at something universal, namely the discovery of what is right and true. As they are oriented towards ethical action, this means that the liberal arts and sciences have a practical value as well. In addition to helping you make good decisions, they can help you get a job in today's economy because they will teach you how to think and write clearly and prepare you to better grasp what truly is. But the key point I want to make today is that the liberal arts and sciences are intended to help us do something even more important than getting a job. Their task is to define the value of freedom itself. Aristotle made an argument for this over 2,300 years ago that is still valid today. According to Aristotle, the liberal arts are the highest pursuits because they're deemed to be the best things to pursue in our leisure or free time. By leisure, Aristotle did not mean passive entertainment like watching Netflix or even playing a video game or riding on a jet ski. Rather, he was referring to those activities we engage in when we're not making a living and taking care of life's necessities. For these are the occupations that define the value of freedom because they are what freedom is for. As all occupation is for the sake of this kind of leisure, freedom is an end in itself, and its best use is that which determines the goal of a properly human life. This means that the liberal arts are about how we are to make the best use of our freedom. They're bound up with an ethical vision that there is a best way for free human beings to spend their time. The answer Aristotle's Politics provides when he discusses the idea of liberal education is that the best way to spend our time is in the development of our highest capacities, which Aristotle understood to be tied to our capacity to reason. He held those arts which best developed our ability to reason to be those that make us better citizens, because their cultivation improves our ability to choose what is naturally best both for ourselves and for our society. He believed that it is the free cultivation of these capacities which determine the value of every other occupation, because these are the activities most worthy of pursuit when you're not occupied with defending your country, making a living, or paying the bills. I think Aristotle's right about this. This is the real reason to get an education in the liberal arts and sciences. They help us define how we're to use our freedom, and as such, they constitute the highest and most appropriate course of study for free people in a free society. Now, in closing, I just want to make one remark. Most of us are not accustomed to thinking that there is one best way to use our freedom, because in modern liberal democracies, we take for granted the notion that everyone has a right to their own opinion about what is best. The liberal arts and sciences do not in any way challenge this right. They are much rather its foundation, because they show us that this right itself rests on an ethical ideal of what is best. In other words, the very notion of freedom that we celebrate so passionately rests on the idea that what is best is that each of us be free to determine for ourselves what the highest ends of our lives are. But beyond merely asserting this freedom as an inalienable right, we also need to develop the tools to justify its value. Otherwise, if we lack the ability to realize and defend it, we stand at risk of losing it. So, as a closing thought, I'd like to suggest that a liberal arts education is what can provide you with the tools to both realize and defend the value of your freedom. Now finally, for all those parents out there worried about the economic consequences of sending your children off to college, and trust me, I'm one of them. My sons are both studying at JU as we speak. Getting a liberal arts education will also prepare your son or daughter to get a job by teaching them to think and communicate clearly and to better understand how to make sound choices in an increasingly complex world.